Listen to me very carefully. What I'm about to share with you is not theory, it's not motivation, it's not another spiritual platitude you've heard 1,000 times before. This is ancient technology that has been hidden in plain sight for 3,000 years, tested by generations of my people, proven in the fires of persecution, poverty, and exile. I'm going to show you why your financial situation hasn't changed, despite your prayers, despite your faith, despite your hard work, and I'm going to give you the exact spiritual protocol that will unlock what has been locked for you. But before I reveal this, I need you to make one decision right now. Look, if you're tired of working hard while watching others prosper, if you're exhausted from doing everything right and still living on the edge, then subscribe now. This is not about me getting more subscribers. This is about you declaring to the universe, I am ready for the shift. Because what I'm about to teach you only works for people who are 100% committed. If you can't even click a button, how are you going to open your hand to let money flow? That subscription is your first act of obedience. Your first small decision that signals to heaven you're ready for the bigger decisions to come. Now let me ask you something that might sting. Do you feel like you're working against an invisible force? Like there's a ceiling you can't break through no matter how hard you push? You pray, you believe, you work yourself to exhaustion, but the breakthrough never comes. Or if it does, it's temporary. You take 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, always struggling, always straining, always one emergency away from financial disaster. Let me tell you what the real problem is. And this is going to hurt. Well, it's not God, it's not lack of faith, it's not some hidden sin. The problem is that you're using the wrong key. It's like trying to open a vault with your house key. You can have faith in the key. You can pray over the key. You can work 80 hours a week turning the wrong key, but the vault will not open. And while you're standing there, sweating, straining, praying, other people are using the right key and walking straight in. They're not more special. They're not smarter. They simply know which key to use. You see, most people approach wealth the way the world teaches them. Work hard, save money, invest wisely, climb the ladder. And yes, these things matter, but they are not the foundation. They are the fruit. And you cannot harvest fruit from a tree you never planted. The sages of our tradition understood something that modern religion has forgotten. Wealth is not random. Prosperity is not a lottery. There is a divine law governing the flow of abundance, just as gravity governs the fall of an apple. You don't beg gravity to work. You don't pray for gravity to be kind to you. You simply align yourself with the law, and it operates perfectly, every single time. This is what I'm going to teach you. Not wishes, not hopes, not positive thinking. I'm going to teach you the law, and when you obey the law, the result is as certain as sunrise. But let me be very clear about something. This path requires sacrifice. It requires you to do things that will feel completely backwards to your logical mind. It requires you to give when you have nothing, to trust when everything screams at you to protect yourself, to open your hand when every instinct tells you to close your fist. And this is where most people fail, not because the law doesn't work, but because they refuse to obey it. Let me tell you my story. 15 years ago, I was bankrupt. Not struggling, not tight on money, bankrupt. I had built a business with my own hands, poured everything into it. My time, my energy, my family's savings. I was so proud of what I was building. I was going to show everyone. I was going to prove that I didn't need anyone's help, not even God's. Pride, that was my sin. Not greed, not laziness. Pride, the belief that I was the source of my own success. And God in His mercy allowed me to learn the hard way what happens when you forget who gives you the power to create wealth. The business collapsed. Creditors came. Humiliation followed. I remember sitting in my empty office, papers scattered everywhere, phone ringing with calls I couldn't answer. I had to call my mother, at 40 years old, and ask to borrow money. Do you know what it's like to look into your mother's eyes and see disappointment? Not anger. Disappointment. My son asked me, "Dad, why can't we order pizza anymore?" And I had no answer. That was my rock bottom. Not the bankruptcy itself. It was the moment I realized that my pride had destroyed everything. I had never felt so powerless, so stupid, so abandoned. But that's where the mercy lives, in the breaking. Because it was in that moment of total collapse that an old rabbi visited me. He didn't come to comfort me. He came to confront me. He said something I'll never forget. He said, "Yosef, you've been holding everything with a closed fist, And what you hold with a closed fist, you lose. But what you release with an open hand returns to you multiplied. You want to know why you're broke? It's not because God is punishing you, it's because you've been acting like you own what was only given to you to manage. I was angry at first. How dare he? Didn't he see what I had lost? Didn't he understand that I had nothing left to give? But he wasn't done. He opened the Torah to Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 18, and he made me read it out loud. Remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the power to get wealth. Then he asked me a question that changed everything. Do you believe this verse or do you just recite it? I had no answer, because the truth was, I didn't believe it. I believed in my intelligence, my strategy, my hard work. I believed I was the source. God was just a blessing I added on top. The Rabbi then taught me something our people have known for millennia, but that religion has turned into empty ritual. He taught me about divine partnership, about the spiritual technology of opening your hand, about how heaven operates on a principle so simple that children understand it, but so radical that grown men reject it. He said, for the next 30 days, you're going to give away 10% of whatever money comes into your hand, even if it's the last dollar you have. Even if you don't, know where your next meal is coming from. You're going to give it, not because you're generous, not because you want to feel good, but because this is the technology for unlocking the flow. This is the key that opens the divine circuit of abundance. I thought he was insane. Give away 10% when I was drowning, when I owed thousands, when my family was suffering. It made no sense. It violated every logical principle of survival. But I had tried my way, and my way had led to ruin. So I obeyed. The first week was torture. A client owed me $500. When he finally paid, my hands were shaking as I took $50 and gave it away to a struggling neighbor. $50 I desperately needed. $50 that could buy groceries. Gone. But something shifted. Not immediately in my circumstances. In me. For the first time in my life, I felt what it meant to trust completely. Not with words, with action. Not with hope, with obedience. And then the law began to operate. Within 2 weeks, an opportunity I had written off came back. A contract I thought was dead was revived. Within a month, I had more work than I could handle. Within 3 months, I had paid off my most urgent debts. Within a year, I was not just stable, I was profitable. Within 5 years, I had built something 10 times larger than what I had lost. But here's what matters more than the money. I was different. The man who lost everything was proud, closed, controlling. The man who emerged was humble, open, trusting. I finally understood what it meant to be a steward, not an owner, a manager, not a master, a partner with heaven, not a competitor. And this is what I want you to understand. The transformation of your finances begins with the transformation of your identity. You cannot unlock abundance while acting like a hoarder. You cannot receive with a closed fist. The law is simple but absolute. What you hold, you lose. What you release, returns, multiplied. Now, most of you are hearing this and immediately your mind is creating objections. I can already hear them because I've heard them 1,000 times. But Rabbi, I barely have enough for myself. How can I give? What if I give and nothing happens? What if this is just religious manipulation? These questions come from fear, and fear is the enemy of faith. Fear closes the hand. Faith opens it. Let me tell you about David. He was a carpenter in my community. Good man, hard-working, honest, but struggling, always struggling. He came to me one day exhausted. He said, Rabbi, I work 70 hours a week, my hands are bleeding, my back is broken, and I still can't pay my daughter's medical bills. What am I doing wrong? I asked him the same question the old rabbi asked me. Are you operating with a closed fist or an open hand? He looked at me, confused, so I explained. How much of your income do you give away? He said, Give away? Rabbi, I have nothing to give. I'm drowning. And there it was. The same lie I had believed. The same misunderstanding of how divine law operates. He thought giving was something you do when you have extra, but the truth is the opposite. Giving is what creates the extra. I challenged him. I said, for 30 days, give 10% of everything that comes to you. Every payment, every tip, every unexpected gift. 10% goes out with an open hand before you spend a single dollar on yourself. He resisted at first, but his desperation was greater than his fear. So he agreed. The third week of his experiment, something extraordinary happened. A wealthy family in the next town heard about his reputation for quality work. They hired him for a complete home renovation. The contract was worth more than he had made in the previous 6 months combined. But that's not the miracle. The miracle is what happened to David. When I saw him after he completed the job, he was different. His face had changed. The anxiety was gone. The exhaustion was still there. From the physical work, but the spiritual heaviness had lifted. He told me, "Rabbi, for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm not carrying everything alone. I'm in partnership, and my partner is more powerful than my problems." That's the transformation. Not just more money in the bank, a completely different way of living, a completely different frequency of existence. Now I need to show you the specific technology, because what I've taught you so far is the principle. But principles, without practical application, remain philosophy. And philosophy doesn't put food on your table. There is a specific text in our tradition that functions as a spiritual frequency for abundance. Not a prayer, not a wish, a technology. Most people have never heard of it because they're familiar with the famous Psalms. The 23rd Psalm everyone knows. "The Lord is my shepherd." Beautiful, comforting. But it's not the psalm for wealth. The psalm I'm talking about is the 112th, and when I say it's been hidden in plain sight, I mean exactly that. It's right there in your Bible. You've probably read past it 100 times without recognizing what you were looking at. A divine blueprint for prosperity encoded in ancient Hebrew poetry. Let me show you something that's going to blow your mind. The word they translated as blessed in Psalm 112 in Hebrew is ashrei, but ashrei does not mean lucky. It means correctly positioned. It's like financial GPS. You can have the best car in the world, but if you're on the wrong road, you never arrive. Ashrei equals you're on the right frequency, in the right position, in the right channel, and when you're in the right channel, abundance flows automatically. Listen to the opening verse. "Blessed is the man who fears the Lord, who delights greatly in his commandments." Now, most people read that and think it's about being a good religious person, going to church, following rules, being moral. And yes, those things are included. But that's not what the verse is really saying. The one who is correctly positioned is the one who fears the Lord. But fear doesn't mean terror. It means reverence. It means understanding that you are operating within a system you didn't create and cannot manipulate. You can only align with it or resist it. And what does this person delight in? His commandments. Not rules for the sake of rules, but divine instructions for how reality operates. The commandments are the operating manual for existence. When you delight in them, when you study them, when you obey them, you are aligning yourself with the fundamental laws that govern everything, including the flow of wealth. The next verse is even more direct. "His descendants will be mighty on earth. The generation of the upright will be blessed." Notice the promise. Not just that you will be blessed, but that your children will be blessed, your grandchildren. The blessing multiplies across generations because you have positioned your family in the correct alignment with divine law. This is not a one-time jackpot. This is generational transformation. This is breaking the cycle of poverty forever. But here's where most people stumble. The next verse says, "Wealth and riches are in his house, and his righteousness endures forever." People read that and they reverse the order. They think, if I get wealth and riches, then I can afford to be righteous. Once I'm comfortable, then I'll be generous. Once I'm secure, then I'll give. No, the verse doesn't say righteousness comes after wealth. It says they exist together. Wealth and riches are in his house because his righteousness endures. The righteousness creates the wealth. The character produces the consequence. You don't get rich and then become good. You become good and then riches follow as the natural result of your alignment with divine law. This is the inversion that changes everything. The world tells you to chase money and then use some of it for good. The Torah tells you to chase righteousness and money will chase you. Now let me show you how this works in real life, because theories are useless unless they translate into transformation. There was a woman in my congregation named Sarah, single mother, 2 children, working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. She came to one of my teachings about the 112th Psalm, and afterward she approached me with tears in her eyes. She said, "Rabbi, this is beautiful, but I can't afford to give 10%. I can barely afford food." I asked her, "How much money do you make in a month?" She told me. It was heartbreaking. barely above poverty line. I said, if you make this amount, then 10% is this amount. That's what you give. She looked at me like I had lost my mind. Rabbi, that's almost $100. That's groceries for a week. How can I give that away when my children are hungry? And this is the moment where faith becomes real. This is where philosophy meets the street. This is where you find out if you actually believe what you say you believe. I told her, Sarah, I'm not asking you to give because I need your money. I don't. I'm asking you to give because this is the key that unlocks the door. This is the frequency that opens the channel. You've been operating with a closed fist your entire life, and where has it gotten you? You're working yourself to death and still struggling. What if there's a different way? She was silent for a long time. Then she said something I'll never forget. I'm so tired, Rabbi. I'm so tired of fighting alone. I said, then stop fighting alone. Enter into partnership. Give the 10% not because you're generous, but because you're desperate. Give it as an act of trust. Give it as a test of the promise. The Torah says, test God in this one area. So test him. She agreed. Not because she was convinced, because she had run out of options. The first month was agony for her. She told me later she cried every time she calculated the 10%. Watching that money leave her hand felt like watching her children's security disappear. But she did it. She gave to a food bank. She gave to a struggling neighbor. She gave to the synagogue. Every dollar felt like a sacrifice. In the second week, Sarah's car broke down. She called me in tears. Rabbi, I gave the money, and now God is punishing me? I said, Sarah, this is not punishment. This is a test. The universe needs to know if you're serious. If at the first difficulty you turn back, and you will never leave where you are. She almost quit. Almost. But something inside her, that last spark of faith, said, just one more week. Just one more. And it was in the third week that something shifted. Her manager at one of her jobs noticed her attitude had changed. She seemed lighter somehow, less bitter, more present. Within 3 weeks, that manager recommended her for a promotion she hadn't even applied for, a position with better hours and 40% more pay. But that's not the end. The second job she was working, the one she had taken out of desperation, suddenly wasn't necessary anymore. She could quit and spend evenings with her children for the first time in 3 years, and with the extra time, she started a small side business from home, making baked goods that became so popular she had more orders than she could fill. Within 6 months, Sarah was making more than double what she had made when she first came to me in tears. But when I saw her, the money wasn't what had changed most. It was her face. The exhaustion had been replaced with something else. Peace, confidence, the look of someone who finally understands how the system works. She told me, Rabbi, I used to think I was alone, that everything depended on me, that if I didn't hold everything tight, it would all fall apart. But when I opened my hand, I discovered I was never holding it in the first place. I was just blocking the flow. That's the revelation. You are not the source, you are the channel, and channels don't hoard, they flow. Let me give you another example, because I know some of you are thinking, that's great for her, but my situation is different. I'm not a struggling single mother, I'm a businessman, I understand economics. This sounds too simple. Let me tell you about Marcus. Entrepreneur, smart, educated, MBA from a prestigious university, built a tech startup that was generating decent revenue, not struggling like Sarah, but not breaking through to the next level either, stuck in the middle, profitable but not prosperous, comfortable but not free. He came to me not because he was desperate, but because he was frustrated. He said, Rabbi, I'm doing everything right. Good product, good team, good strategy, but we hit a ceiling and I can't figure out why. I asked him the same question I ask everyone. Are you operating as a channel or a reservoir? He didn't understand the question. So I explained. When money comes into your business, what do you do with it? Do you reinvest it? Pay your team well? Give to causes that matter? Or do you hoard it, protect it, build bigger reserves because you're afraid of what might happen? He was honest. He said, I keep healthy reserves. That's just good business. You never know when a crisis might hit. I said, fear is what keeps reservoirs full and channels empty. You're holding everything tight because you believe you're the source of your security. But what if your security doesn't come from what you hold, but from your alignment with the one who gives you the power to create wealth in the first place? He was skeptical, but he was also stuck, so he agreed to an experiment. For 90 days, he would give 10% of all business revenue to charitable causes. Not from profits, from revenue, before paying himself, before calculating margins. First fruits. His accountant told him he was insane. His business partner questioned his judgment. But Marcus committed. The first month, nothing dramatic happened. Revenue stayed the same. He started to wonder if he had made a mistake, but he continued. The second month, they received an inquiry from a potential client they had pitched a year earlier and assumed was dead. The client had gone with a competitor but wasn't satisfied. They wanted to switch. The contract was worth more than Marcus's company had ever closed. One deal that would transform the entire year. But here's what's important. Marcus told me later that even before the deal closed, something had changed in him. The anxiety he had carried for years about financial security started to dissolve. He realized he had been living in constant fear disguised as prudence, and that fear had been choking his business's growth. When he opened his hand, when he released control, when he operated as a channel instead of a reservoir, everything shifted. Within a year, his revenue had tripled. Within 2 years, he sold the company for an amount that set him free financially for the rest of his life. But when I talked to him after the sale, he said something profound. "Rabbi, I thought I wanted the money for freedom, but what I really wanted was peace. And I found the peace before the money came. The money just confirmed what I had already learned, that I was never in control anyway. I was just in partnership." Do you see the pattern? Sarah, Marcus, my own story, different circumstances, different starting points, but the same spiritual law operating, the same technology unlocking the same result. Righteousness creates wealth, not the other way around. Generosity opens channels. Fear closes them. You cannot receive with a closed fist. You cannot prosper while hoarding. This is not opinion, this is law, as certain as gravity, as reliable as sunrise. And the 112th Psalm is the frequency that aligns you with this law. It's not magic words. It's not a spell. It's a daily recalibration of your heart, your mind, your identity. When you recite this psalm with understanding, when you meditate on its principles, when you allow its truth to reshape how you see yourself and your relationship with abundance, you are tuning yourself to the divine frequency of prosperity. Now I'm going to give you the exact protocol, not theory, not inspiration. The actual steps you need to take starting today. I call this the righteousness protocol. 3 steps, simple but not. Easy, clear but costly, and if you follow them for 30 days, you will not be the same person at the end. Neither will your financial situation. Step 1. Align your heart with divine law. This is not about feeling spiritual. This is about making a decision. You must decide right now that you are no longer the source of your provision. You are the steward. You are the manager. You are the channel. God is the source. The universe doesn't owe you anything. Your employer doesn't owe you anything. Your clients don't owe you anything. Everything you have is a gift. Everything you will receive is grace. And your job is not to hoard it, but to manage it according to the instructions of the one who gave it to you. This mental shift is foundational. Without it, the rest of the protocol is just religious performance. You can recite psalms all day. You can give money away. But if your heart still believes you are the source, if you're still operating in fear and control, nothing will change. The technology only works when your internal frequency matches the external action. So before you do anything else, you need to settle this. Sit in silence, put your hand on your chest, and speak out loud. Say, "I am not the source. I am the channel. Everything I have is a gift. Everything I will receive is grace. I release control. I open my hand. I trust the one who gives me the power to create wealth." Say it until you feel something shift inside you. Say it until the fear starts to loosen its grip. Say it until you believe it. Step 2. Activate the frequency. Every morning when you wake up, before you check your phone, before you think about your problems, before you start planning your day, you recite Psalm 112 out loud, not in your head, out loud. Let your ears hear your mouth declare the promise, and every night before you sleep, you recite it again. You end your day the same way you began it, aligned with the frequency of righteousness and abundance. When you recite it, don't rush, don't mumble. Read it slowly. Let each verse sink into your consciousness. Meditate on what it means. Blessed is the man who fears the Lord. That's you. You are positioning yourself in alignment. His descendants will be mighty on earth. That's your children, your legacy. Wealth and riches are in his house. That's your future. Not because you're special, because you're aligned. This daily recitation is not a ritual. It's a recalibration. You're resetting your frequency. You're reminding yourself of the truth. You're drowning out the voices of fear and doubt with the voice of divine promise. 30 days, every morning, every night, no excuses, no exceptions. Step 3, become a channel. And here is where 90% of people fail. Listen, 10% of everything that comes into your hand goes out. Before the electric bill, before groceries, before anything. But Rabbi, I have debt. I know. I had millions in debt. And even then, I gave the 10%, because this objection comes from the exact same place that has kept you broke. You think holding tight creates security, but holding tight creates stagnation. Look what I'm going to do for you. For 30 days, just 30 days, give the 10%. And if on day 30 you don't see any change, send me a message and I will personally refund the amount. You see that? I'm putting my money where my mouth is, because I know the law works. The question is, will you have the courage to test it? You calculate 10% of every paycheck, every tip, every unexpected gift, every refund, every dollar that comes to you, and you give it to your place of worship, to a cause that matters, to someone who needs it more than you. The destination matters less than the act of release. But here's what's crucial. You don't give to get. You give to align. You give because this is how channels operate. You give because this is the technology. The return is automatic, but it's not transactional. You're not bribing God. You're not trying to manipulate the universe. You're simply positioning yourself in the flow, and beyond the 10%, you practice radical generosity in every area of your life. When you see someone in need and you have the ability to help, you help. When you can tip generously, you tip generously. When you can pay for someone's meal, you pay for it. When you can give your time, your expertise, your attention, you give it freely. You're training yourself to live with an open hand. You're rewiring your brain to operate as a channel instead of a reservoir, and every act of generosity, no matter how small, is reinforcing the new identity. You're not a hoarder anymore. You're a conduit of divine blessing. Now let me be honest with you about what this will cost, because I'm not here to sell you a fantasy. I'm here to tell you the truth. This will be uncomfortable. When you give that first 10%, especially if you're barely making it, you will feel fear, real fear, the kind that makes your hands shake, the kind that whispers, you're being irresponsible, you're putting your family at risk, this is foolish. That voice is the voice of the old identity, the voice of the person who thought they were the source, the voice of fear and control. And you need to recognize it for what it is. It's not wisdom, it's not caution, it's the enemy of your breakthrough. You will also face pressure from people around you who don't understand. Your spouse might question you. Your friends might think you've joined a cult. Your accountant will definitely think you're insane. They're operating on a different frequency. They don't understand the law you're aligning with, and that's okay. You're not answerable to them. You're answerable to the one who gives you the power to create wealth. But here's what I promise you. If you do this protocol for 30 days without compromise, something will shift. Maybe not in your bank account. Immediately, though often it does. But definitely in you. The anxiety will start to lift. The fear will begin to loosen. You'll start to notice opportunities you were blind to before. Connections will form. Doors will open. Ideas will come. And over time, the external will begin to match the internal. Because you've changed the frequency you're operating on. You've moved from scarcity to abundance, from reservoir to channel, from fear to trust. I've seen this happen hundreds of times. Different people, different circumstances, but the same law operating with the same precision. Because this is not about me. This is not about you being special. This is about ancient technology that works when you work it. So, here's my challenge to you. 30 days, 3 steps. Align your heart. Recite the psalm morning and night. Give the 10% and practice radical generosity. 30 days to test whether what I'm teaching you is true. 30 days to discover if the law really operates the way the sages said it does. 30 days to transform from someone who struggles to someone who flows. And I want to hear from you. When you start seeing the shift, When the breakthrough comes, when you realize this actually works, leave a comment below. Tell me your story. Because your testimony will encourage someone else who's afraid to start. Your breakthrough will give someone else the courage to open their hand. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Because what I've taught you today is just the beginning. There are other psalms, other technologies, other frequencies for healing, for relationships, for purpose, for peace. I'm building an army of people who understand how spiritual law actually works. People who are tired of religion that doesn't produce results. People who want the ancient wisdom that transforms lives. We're going to change the world. Not with slogans, not with theories, but with people who have been transformed by aligning with divine law. People who have broken generational poverty. People who have unlocked their destiny. People who have discovered they were never alone in the fight. You're not watching this by accident. This found you because it's your time. The gates that have been closed are about to open. Not because you're lucky, because you're finally using the right key. The next 30 days will tell the story. Will you stay where you are, doing what you've always done, getting what you've always gotten? Or will you step into the ancient technology that has sustained my people through exile, persecution, and every impossible circumstance for 3,000 years? The choice is yours, but the law is not negotiable. Open your hand and watch what heaven does. Close your fist and stay exactly where you are. I know what you're going to choose, because you're still here, because something in you recognizes truth when you hear it, because you're tired of struggling and ready for the breakthrough. So start today, right now, before fear talks you out of it, before logic convinces you to wait. Align your heart, find Psalm 112, calculate your 10%, and step into the flow. Your life is about to change. Not because I said so, because the law says so, and the law never fails. Shalom, my friend, until next time. Until next.